I want to, again, on behalf of the government people of Delta State, welcome you to the state and welcome you to this session. Let me also welcome everyone that have come here, especially our elders, religious leaders, political leaders. Yeah, so, Honorable Minister, we have one of our elders who is above 85 years, almost 85 now. Yes, who is here. He has been sitting here patiently. I want to especially recognize his presence and of course national. And I want to again thank all of you for your patience. I know some of you have been here since 11 o'clock. 10, 9, 8, 7. God will bless you for being patient. You know, there's a lot of reward in patience. And the way you have been very patient, God will bless you and reward you for your patience. And I know you are patient because you want the good of Delta State, you want the good of Nigeria. So I will not waste your time. I will just quickly react to some of the issues that have been raised. And like has been said, they are in various groups. I will start from those that have to do with peace and security. And I think the major issue that was raised was the issue of kidnapping. But I will also tie that down to the threat from Gbaramatu. Because the first question was about a threat from Gbaramatu on the Egbema Gbaramatu Regional Development Council. Now, for those who do not understand, several years ago, there was a crisis in that part of the state, the Warri area, and the facilities of Chevron were severely damaged. And each of those facilities will cost Chevron about $600 million to put in place. They have 2 or 3 there. So what we did then, I wasn't a governor there, but I remember because I was part of it. What we did then was to sit down with Chevron and devise a way for Chevron to carry out their corporate social responsibilities through some of these ethnic groups. So 3 regional development councils were formed. There was the Laje Regional Development Council, the Shetiri Regional Development Council, and we had the Egbema Gbaramatu Regional Development Council. These are areas that Chevron operates. So whatever Chevron is to do is done through these regional development councils. The executive of those councils are from the locality and they manage the funds for the councils. Now, the state government acts as a mediator because the state government also has 2 members in the council, and the state government ensures that although the projects are developed by the communities themselves, but the state government ensures that the proper utilization of the fund. So I believe that what is happening now is that there's leadership crisis in the Egbema Gbaramatu Development Council. People are struggling to who will be the president or who will be this and all that. And I think that is what the guy was raising. As much as possible, we try not to interfere with what they are doing, except it borders on security issues. So far, we are monitoring them. We're hoping that they will resolve it among themselves. But if it starts developing into security problems, then the state government will have no option than to intervene. So my appeal to the Egbema Gbaramatu people is that please sit down and select your leaders. You cannot allow that to cause crisis in that zone. Then on the issue of kidnapping, I want to say that as a state government, since 2007, peace and security has been our major agenda. And at that time, it was a problem of militancy. Of course, we created strategies to deal with militancy, strategies that had to do with engagement on one box and then law and order on the other box. The engagement we handled through various groups, through various persons, and through the SOPADEC. But for those who still continued to cause problem in spite of the engagement, the Joint Task Force was there to handle the crisis. Fortunately, the federal government put up an amnesty program, which today is in the forefront of driving the peace issues in the Niger Delta. Now, but that Niger Delta militancy also created some other forms of security challenges, and one of them is kidnapping. There's also the sea piracy, there's illegal bunkering. These are fairly new challenges that it created. Now, we've been dealing with the kidnapping as a state government. We have been mapping out our strategies. As of now, we have developed, we have been able to identify some hot spots in the state, what we call the red spots, where they are either the school for training kidnappers, or kidnappers are taken to those places after when they are kidnapped. So we've identified those areas. We are strategizing on security for those areas, and that is why in the last few weeks we have seen that the incidence is gradually going down. There are other strategies we are working out much about here. But like I keep saying, the most important thing about dealing with this issue is intelligence gathering. And so we all complain about kidnappers, yet some of these kidnappers live with us. We are their landlords. They are our neighbors. Some of us know them. Some of us even benefit from them. Yet when they kidnap, it is me you are accused of not doing anything. But all I'm appealing and begging you is to please help us with information. I know that each time I say this, people say, oh, once you give the information to the police, that the kidnappers will come after you because it will be divulged to the kidnappers. And we say, look, there are other avenues that we can give out such information. So please help us with information, and we will totally eradicate kidnapping. Now, as for the other questions, the other areas, and that is the issue of infrastructure. And I think it started from a member of the panel, who was the former NAS president, who talked about projects and the issue of abandoned projects. Now, let me state this. When I came into office, I met, I was part of the last government. There were projects that were not completed. Today, people take a lot of the projects for granted. Jakpa Road, for instance, in Warri or Efru, I was the one that even paid the compensation for Jakpa Road. 700 million. That was within the first 2 weeks I became governor. Sorry, I paid the compensation for that, and then went on to complete that road. Okere Road. People remember Okere Road. The two bridges in Okere Road. The bridge in Okere Road, the one in Bowen Avenue. We did them. Those roads, they were just started, and I had to complete them. The hospital you saw at Ogara, it was when I was commissioner for health that I talked to my boss, let us start. So I even started that hospital, the paperwork as commissioner for health. And when I became SSG, the construction continued. And when I became governor, and I couldn't have abandoned that project. I completed it, but I also did all the equipping. And the major aspect of the hospital is the equipment. I also did all the equipment. Now, what I'm trying to say is that government is a continuous process. Even if I don't complete all the projects, and it's not possible to complete all the projects you have started, somebody coming after me should complete them. Budget for it adequately, but the inflow of funds might affect the project. Either the inflow of funds or some policies that come in midway that will make you adjust your budget. Might affect one or two projects. Let me tell you an example. Now, within the last 2 years, workers' salary have risen over 100%. I know that 2-3 years ago, our wage bill used to be 3.something billion, but now it's about 7 billion. Why? Because of increase in salary, increase in allowances, and all that. So so the contracts you are awarded at that period, of course, when the wages come, you have to pay. So something gives. So there are so many reasons why we have delayed completion of projects. Sometimes it may come from the contractor, but as much as possible, we are completing all our projects. Now, as for the specifics in terms of infrastructure, the road in Ukwani, one community in Ukwani that somebody talked about, okay. See, when they take plenty like this, they had. And all the other questions that were raised about infrastructure, pipe-borne water, general hospital, power supply in Sapele, all that. Now, for the roads, my brother from that community, it is not possible for this government even in 8 years, to tar all the roads in Delta State. It is not possible. Delta State, 60% land, 40% water. Now, what we are trying to strategize to do is to even connect the land to the water with roads and bridges. So, those are the strategy. Even the land that we have still has a lot of roads that require tarring. We are doing the much we can based on the available resources. And what I find interesting sometimes is that people assess the sources of the government on road construction based on the road to their houses or the road to their communities. I think this is very unfair. When you base the government is not constructing road because there is no road, it did not construct the road to your village, or did not construct the road to your house, then he has failed in terms of road construction. I think it's unfair. But you see, we must also look at ourselves as a state. The roads we are constructing now, the Asaba-Ughelli road, for instance, we are not constructing it for any ethnic group or for any community. That road will not be driven by one ethnic group or by one community. Everybody will pass through the road. So please, in making an assessment, let us not be angry because a road has not gone to my community. Because sometimes when I watch television, I watch some of even enlightened persons, they get very upset. Oh, this government is not constructing roads. And when you ask, the road to my village, and the man is in Lagos, he has not even reached the village in the last 10 years. Yet he's complaining to the road to the village. Sometimes some of these roads have even started. So I want to appeal that we are doing a lot in terms of road construction. If it has not got into your community, I believe that one day it will get to your community. As for what I think this was an internet question, whether we are doing anything whether we are doing anything for oil producing communities. I was quite happy when I insisted that the team has to get to the office of the SUPADEC in Warri. Now, the SUPADEC is an outfit that we give about 50% of our 30% derivation every month. Since I became a governor, I have released over 160 billion naira to the SUPADEC. Now, that is very challenging. Because I think I'm one of the few governors who is not, because of the law we have on the SUPADEC, who is not able to spend all the money that comes to me. You know, when the money comes, I have to give the duration part, I have to divide it to and give some to the SUPADEC. So many other governors, utilize, they control the money directly themselves. So they can decide that 160 billion, I can make Asaba, I can construct many flyovers and everybody will be clapping. But you see, oil producing communities also have to be part of this. We are giving them that money and they are doing some projects in the oil producing communities. And we cannot move the oil producing communities from 0 to 100 in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It takes quite some time. I want to appeal that as long as that outfit is there, I will continue to fund it. It will gradually be making some impact in the oil producing communities. Now, the issue of primary healthcare centers, I'm happy that Dr. Igoroje, yeah. Now, that is the problem we have with budgets. Executive prepare a budget based on the policies of government, based on so many things. The budget gets to the house. Some of us have friends in the house have this, oh, put primary healthcare center in my community. Put this in my community. And that has nothing to do with the overall policy of running the health system of the state. And you know that a primary healthcare center is not just a building alone. You have to staff it. You have to equip it. So, if around your community alone you have 3 primary healthcare centers, I mean, for anybody doing developmental planning, you should know that that is an aberration. Why would we have 3 primary healthcare centers in one community? One ward, 3 primary healthcare centers in one ward. You will know that some of those buildings are political. They are political. Now you see, and that is why I keep advising. Each time I tell them, look, we must look at the state holistically and plan the state holistically, whether the healthcare, education. Right now, we have over I think about 62 or 65 general hospitals in Delta State. Delta State does not need 65 general hospitals. I'm talking to you as a professional. Because the concept these days, in terms of provision of healthcare, it's not about the number of general hospitals that you have. It's more at the primary healthcare. And it is not building primary healthcare centers, but it's running a program that will affect the lives of every Delta. And that is what we'll be trying to put in place. That we are strengthening the primary healthcare level, not through building of primary healthcare centers, but through programs that will ensure that everybody has access to healthcare. So, I'm sorry if those 3 primary healthcare centers, we have challenges with them. It's because of, they were built without taking cognizance of our strategy in the health sector. But the Commissioner for Health is here. I'm sure he's listening. I'm sure your local government chairman is also here. But you know the issue of primary healthcare centers. So local government also has input in primary healthcare centers. Then as for the general hospital in Obiaroko, the maternity and children's ward that is opposite the hospital, I'm surprised it's not being put into use because it's a project that has been on for quite some time. I think the place is completed. Commissioner for Health is also listening, so please, if it's not being put into use, let us get it. Let us start using it. Now, yes, also pipe-borne water. We talked about pipe-borne water. I agree with you. Some of us do not believe in all these boreholes for communities. You put a borehole for a community, put a tank. At the end of the day, there's a challenge. Who runs that borehole? Is it the community? Is it the local government? Is it the state? And we have thousands of boreholes across the state that are wasting because you see, I see some of this infrastructure development as programs rather than projects. We deal with a lot of them as projects. And what does that mean? We just go and construct the thing. How the thing is sustained, how it is run, nobody plans for it. But if we look at it as a program, even if we are putting a borehole, we will also make arrangements. We will also plan how do we sustain this borehole? How do we run it? You know, who maintains it? That is a full program, unfortunately. So what we have done as a government is to change that strategy of putting one borehole in the community. Is to go for regional development, regional water development. And I'm sure that we will have this big water reservoir around your community there. Yeah? Ovioria, which we have rehabilitated. Water is running there now. Correct? Thank you. Yes, so the next stage, we have used that strategy. You know, many of those reservoirs across the state that were built by Burundian regime, many of them are no longer working. So what we try to do in this administration is to resuscitate them. And many of them are now working. The next challenge is distribution. And that's where we are going to now. Distribution of this water from the reservoir to the various communities. So that is our next strategy. I hope that between this year and next year, all those reservoirs that are now working, we can distribute the water around the community. That also takes care of the Warri Efru water project. I think it was an internet question. It's obvious that person is not is very far from Delta and does not know what is going on in Delta, because I'm sure I was happy that the minister visited the project, and the person would have known that that project itself, there's water coming out in that project now. Yes, the tank is also the next stage. Now what happened was that at the time, at the initial construction, it was also combined with distribution of distribution pipelines. What now happened was that when roads were being constructed, a lot of the pipelines were damaged. So what we have done is to get, when we completed that, the main power station, and we pumped water, we found that there were so many leakages around the Warri Efru area because the pipes were already damaged through road construction. So what we have done is to get another contractor that they've done the assessment. They are now repiping Warri and Efru, repairing those that can be repaired, but also repiping Warri and Efru. It's a project we believe we should complete in the next few months. And once we complete that, then the water will get to the various houses. So that is not an abandoned project. I don't know who, I think it was an internet question. It is not. And I'm quite happy that the minister. Now, as for the waste disposal, we have challenges with waste disposal, especially in our urban areas. For Asaba, we have approved and we have actually paid for a waste recycling plant. And the contractor is already on site. He has promised that in the next 4 months, that plant will start. We are also doing the paperwork for the Warri recycling plant. There are 2 different contractors, people that we have given this using, so that there will be competition. Because the Warri plant says theirs is going to be better than the one we are doing in Asaba. I think those, okay, the power in Sapele. Yes, Sapele has 2 power plants right now, but we still have challenges with the power. Opai has a power plant that contributes about 540 megawatts of electricity, but we still have problem with power in Opai. Ughelli also has a power plant that is almost 200 megawatts, but we have problem with Ughelli. Now, the truth is that although these power plants are there, once they generate into the national grid. There's nothing that comes down. We've tried to work with the federal government on how to handle it. In fact, the initial arrangement was that the new plants that were being constructed in NIPP, they were supposed to do some stepping down in the local community. But what they seem to be telling us is that those big plants, it is difficult to remove a little and step down in the community. What they are suggesting, and which we are looking into, is that we can work with them to construct smaller power plants, maybe 10 megawatts, 20 megawatts, close to the major power plants, and take advantage of the gas that is going to those power plants to power the smaller plants. 10, 20 megawatts, for instance, in Sapele, will give a lot of power to Sapele. Even the Opai to 20 megawatts will give a lot of power. So that's the area we are looking into, or where we have the power plant. We want to see how we can work with either the government or the companies that have those power plants to construct smaller power plants that will supply the communities. Okay, let me go back to kidnappers, and I think it was also an internal question that we're having issues with death penalty for kidnappers. Now, there's already a death penalty. Every kidnapper is an armed robber. Abi? Every kidnapper is an armed robber. So I don't know why we are talking about debate about death penalty. There's already death penalty. When you go to court, I mean, the way the cases go, kidnapping, stroke, armed robbery, Attorney General, is that not true? Is that not how they do it? So why do I have to sign another law for kidnappers? Once you're a kidnapper, you're also an armed robber. So, yeah, it's logical. You're an armed robber. You're also a kidnapper. You're already an armed robber. So all this unnecessary debate about why he's not going to sign death penalty for kidnappers and all that. Kidnappers are already, the law already is already there to send kidnap to death. And I must say that these states, and I must that in the last few months, our judges have been bold enough to sentence many kidnappers. They are working very hard to sentence many kidnappers. I think those are the major questions that. Okay, finally, there's one about debt. Somebody wanted to know whether we are owing so much. No. All the states have been ranked in terms of debt profile, and we are the third least owing state in Nigeria. So
Honorable Minister will answer and just round up. Thank you.
Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First, I think this is a very good exchange. This is the purpose of the Good Governance Tour. It will offer citizens the opportunity to ask questions and get answers from their governments and hear your own suggestions. And I thank you for the active participation here in Asaba. It's been very, very interesting indeed. Somebody talked about power in Sapele, our mommy. He said power has been flying over Sapele. Power has not come down in Sapele. And she's very worried about that. Now that Sapele is producing power for Nigeria, it must have power. Yesterday when we were at the plant, the youths of the area also asked that question. And I said, if I get back, because I am not directly in charge of running Sapele, and I do not know the entire circumstances, but I offer to carry the message to the Ministry of Power, my colleague in the Ministry of Power, to find out what is going on in Sapele, why is it generating power and it does not have power in the environment. So now that we have spoken openly on the national forum, we will carry your message still forward to make sure that the communities in Sapele also have power generated from the Sapele power plant. We'll work on that, and I will discuss with my colleague in the Ministry of Power. We will forward the answers to you. If we have your telephone number and so on, we will still call you to discuss the progress. But what I can say is we will do everything possible to ensure that actions are taken so that Sapele that is generating power has some of those power to energize itself for development. Now, there was a question by the youth, the vibrant youth that spoke here on the federal government, and I was the one saying youths have not been given a chance. That is the purpose of this encounter. You speak out your mind. Now, let me say this. The East-West Road is one of the most difficult roads that this government inherited. And we have been working on that road, but the work has not progressed as it should progress. Yesterday, we met the Setractor, the contractor who is handling the portion, particularly through Delta State up to Bayelsa. When we came through Port Harcourt, we saw a lot of progress from the Port Harcourt end as we are traveling to Bayelsa by the RCC. We have completed portions of those roads. Even through here, there are portions that have been completed. But there are portions, particularly between portions of Delta and Bayelsa, which are still problematic. Yesterday, we talked to Setraco outside. Setraco told us that they had some budget difficulties, but now they are mobilizing and going to site with higher activity. I'm also familiar with the fact that the Shopee program is giving some money to the contractors on the East-West Road to expedite action on the completion of that road. It's a strategic road. It's a road that will open up the south-south. The president, the government were committed to the completion of the road, and more activity will be witnessed there from this year. You will see it yourself. There was a question on whether Shopee program is being diverted by PDP. Like I said, I'm not here to speak for PDP, even though I am serving in the government of PDP, and I'm proud of PDP, and I know it's a great party. But the point is clear. Shopee program money is divided into 3 portions from the federation account. The local governments take their money. I hope you are aware. The local government take their Shopee money directly. The federal government does not dictate to them how that money will be spent. The state governments also take their money directly. And the Minister of Finance has been advertising what every local government, what every state government has collected throughout the country. So the federal government is not in charge of all the Shopee program. The federal government only takes its own portion. States are taking their own. Local governments are taking their own. And no question is being asked about what is happening at the other level. I am the only one telling you that federal government is using its own to give you jobs. So it is left for all of us to demand how the money is being used. But at the federal level, I can assure you that there is a board headed by Christopher Kolade, and that board is making sure that the program is run perfectly and it is being done for all the parts of the country. There is not diversion of that money to any political party at all. You know, in the time of politics, people can say anything. I can tell you that it's just political talk. It is not true that the money is being diverted. And we have 30,000 jobs to be coming this year, next year, and the following year. So please show interest on it. Now, I was asked a question on the dredging of the Niger by my elder colleague, I think Mr. Willie Bozimo, on whether the Niger has been dredged properly. Now, sometimes these are technical issues. When you look at it with your eye, it does not give you the story. The dredging of the Niger, the capital dredging has been completed. And I can tell you that the maintenance dredging, maintenance to keep silt out of it, the Niger is 2.5 meters deep. So the channel is not for ocean-going vessels. It's for barges, you know, for barges to move through the Niger. That capital dredging has been completed, and there is a subsisting contract for maintenance dredging to keep silt out of it. Barges are moving up the Niger. So please, this is a technical issue which you can't just stand by the river and make a conclusion. And I can tell you clearly that we are comfortable with the work being done on the river Niger, and that the ports, the river port in Baro is completed, to be completed in April, in Lokoja by the end of the year, which has finished. Oguta is completed by April. So it is not true that the dredging is not going on properly. I called the Minister of Transport while I was waiting on the table. He saw me on telephone. I wanted to get confirmation. And the confirmation from my colleague is that the dredging of the Niger is proper and maintenance dredging is continuous to keep silt out of the channel. So please, it is not something that you can just stand out and feel it, but it's true. 4 months ago, the House of Representatives took a boat from there to come down south here when they were doing their own oversight duties. So it is true that the job is being done well. Please, I want to assure you, also dredging from I have not been able to come forward. And I was looking for you, you are sitting by me, and I thought it's important that you know that yes, we have challenges. I can tell you that at the level of the federal government, there are challenges. Why? Almost all our roads are looking for attention at the same time throughout the country. Everywhere you go. And the reason is because for decades, there was no other way of moving in Nigeria apart from road. Maybe those who travel by air. So the roads don't last, and that's why the president is fixing the railways to relieve the roads and make them last. So long as we do not have a functional rail system, you will not have roads that you can depend on. Because the goods traveling by roads, some of them ought to go by the river, some ought to go by rail. So we are not looking at it in a way that will be sustainable. It is a pity that in some places the roads have not been delivered, but there is renewed activity and more funding is going into our road system. So we will ask for patience by Nigerians to understand that a government that is facing almost an emergency in power, emergency in rail that never worked, emergency in all the areas, we must prioritize. And so we are fixing those things. They may not be going as fast as you want, but the president, all of us are committed to ensuring that the 3 levels of transportation are put in place for Nigerians. Now, the last thing I'll tell you is on the second Niger bridge. Yesterday, the preferred bidder for the road was announced by the Federal Minister of Works. The second Niger bridge, which will be built as a huge investment. Yesterday, the preferred bidder was announced, and that bidder is Julius Baja a consortium. It is the one that will be building the second Niger bridge. The president, by the grace of God, will be doing the groundbreaking before the end of this quarter. So the second Niger bridge is a reality. We are procuring it, and I can say the contractor is emerging, and by the end of this quarter or early next quarter, the president will be coming here to do the groundbreaking for work on the second Niger bridge to take off. So it's a lot of investment. It is not easy. When I look at the president, sometimes I say, look, this is the worst job in the world that everybody wants to do. It's not an easy job. When you look at the local government councillor and the issue you face in Nigeria, to look at the money we have spent on security. If that money was going into infrastructure, we could have fixed all our roads with it. So we Nigerians keep creating unnecessary areas where we're investing money that we ought to do in development. So let us as citizens admit that we must also play our part. And we're playing our part. I know the president is very, very committed, and we're having results. You can never fix the Nigeria Goodluck Jonathan inherited in 2 years or 3 years. It's not possible. It's work in progress. And your son is doing a great job trying to do those difficult things that other governments didn't. We're talking about dredging of the Niger now. We forgot that it was in 1953 that we promised to dredge the Niger. It is not taking place until now. So we must at least admit that difficult things that other people avoided, the president is fixing them. So I want to thank you, the people of Delta, and again, I really appreciate the good work your governor has done, and together with the federal government, I can tell you that we definitely, surely will deliver, and we need some patience for those results to come to us. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Information. So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have almost come to the end. We have almost come to the end. We started with prayers. Are we not a prayer nation? So make we say prayers before we go. So may I now call on Reverend Jude Ahere. If he is around, I beg come close this one with prayers for us. Reverend Jude. Okay. Thank you now.
Let's rise for prayers. Our Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for all that you've done today. Thank you for Delta State. Thank you for this country, Nigeria. Lord, we thank you because we are making progress. We can see where we are going. Thank you, Heavenly Father. As we go, we ask that your presence will go with us. We ask for your perfect wisdom. We ask for your strength. We ask, Lord, for your guidance. This state is blessed. Nigeria is blessed. Thank you. Go with us. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
The national anthem, please.
very much. Thank you, Your Excellency, the Governor. Thank you, the Honorable Minister.